A magic formula for a successful startup. There was a geek coding, a designer, and a hustler.
We wanted to build a product and we wanted to have some control over how this product is used. We had a good combination to start. Every call matters. You don't want to miss calls. You kind of don't want to be a passive witness to inefficiency that you know can be fixed. We spent a lot of time with prospects in their locations, understanding how they work. You cannot
Doesn't
fake
work.
it till you make it, unfortunately. It just doesn't work.
Good morning. Welcome to Blueprint, the B2B marketing podcast. Today I have a great pleasure to welcome Ada Andruszkiewicz, the COO of Talkie.ai.
Thank you for having me, Kuba. It's a real pleasure to spend the Friday morning here with you.
Great to have you, Ada. Well, I was much closer to the startup environment a few years ago, and I remember there was like a magic formula for a successful startup. There was a geek coding, a designer, and a hustler. I wonder which role did you take?
So this is a great question to start with, and quite unusual. And I appreciate the unusual twist. So
I know you did a lot of pitching in the last couple of days, so I didn't want to start with this one.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
I have it on my list.
Okay, we can come back to that. So this is a really good question because there's three of us co-founders at Talkie, and I think each of us brought quite different experience and different angle to our funding team, which then got passed on to our whole team. And my background was in product, but my passion is for creating organizations. So when I worked at Rightmove in London, I really admired the way this organization was run. It was really successful from like every angle, financial, popularity. People loved it. It was just a real pleasure to work there and really pick up how do they do it. So when we moved to Poland after 10 years in London, I still continued working for Rightmove, but when the opportunity came up with my two co-founders to start a new business, I thought this is super because we came back from the UK and now I can, it sounds a bit cheesy, but really how it was, I can kind of give back. I can also kind of give back what I learned there and create the kind of culture and the kind of company that that is a bit utopian in a way that our kind of meritocratic culture that we have. So I brought the product and the organizational experience, and my co-founder Paweł, he brought the entrepreneurial experience because he had never, I think, had a job outside of being a CEO or some kind of entrepreneur, maybe for a short period of time. So he brought that perspective and that entrepreneurial and more visionary perspective. And Wojtek is a modern inventor. Like if he had lived, a couple hundred years ago, he'd be the one inventing the microscope and the light bulb. And he's just a tinker with technology and product, but with a really great business intuition that has only kind of developed further. So we had a good combination to start. And we knew each other before, so we kind of knew what we are getting ourselves into. And yeah, this started in 2018.
And what was the problem you were originally trying to solve?
So originally, we wanted to create voice assistants for any industry. And it's like when you know a technology, you kind of have a responsibility to use it in situations where you feel that this technology could solve a problem. So you kind of don't want to be a passive witness to inefficiency that you know can be fixed with the technology.
That's a nice purpose.
So that's how we felt.
But I know that eventually you pivoted. So was it painful, like to really remodel
It was really liberating, to be honest, because we were really frustrated with how it was going because we didn't want to be an agency. I know you guys run an agency, but it wasn't for us. We wanted to build a product and we wanted to have some control over how this product is used. Also, we didn't have enough funding to really compete on features with other solution providers who had really broad platforms for creating AI assistants. So we were kind of on the lookout. We had this radar on, looking at different industries that we worked with. Where could we focus? Where could we pivot to? What is the vertical where a voice assistant communicating over the phone would bring the most benefit and where we could scale, because we didn't want to do project after project and then not be able to commercialize what we build.
So where are you now?
So when we had our first couple of clients from healthcare, we thought that this is actually a really perfect industry, both in Poland and in the US, because these are the two markets where we are present. In the US, for instance, over 70% of interactions in healthcare happen over the phone. The US at this point spends $20 billion to work help desks, phones per year. An average patient waits 4 minutes for the call to be picked up. When the call is picked up, you are put on hold, transferred, because there's simply not enough people to pick up those calls. And also, healthcare is really special because the volume of traffic, of phone traffic that you get is really varied. So Monday morning, you will get just a couple calls around 7 o'clock, and they just grow exponentially, reaching 200 calls.
You cannot really respond to that.
You cannot really, because you cannot clone people with that speed. So when you look at the characteristics of healthcare, and also that for a private sector in healthcare, every call matters. You don't want to miss calls. The practices that come to talk to us, they say we miss 30% of calls, sometimes 50% of calls. And we've had extreme cases where someone said, we just switch off the phones and just left voicemail because we were not able to cope.
And you can put some value to that. I mean, you can measure this in money, money.
Definitely, because you have lost revenue, you have no shows because someone wanted to cancel, they couldn't get through, so they just didn't show up. So in that sense, it's real money lost because you cannot communicate with your patient.
Yeah, you might not be able to get it back if they go to competition. So where do you market now? I mean, where do you really acquire clients? You mentioned US. Is this your primary market?
The US markets and the market here in Poland, where our headquarters are located. We knew the market here really well. And then after we kind of confirmed our initial hypothesis that healthcare can really benefit from our product, we decided to put more emphasis onto the US market. And soon we realized that the challenges are even bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that because not only, I mean, healthcare itself feels like a very, restricted, regulated area. And then US, it's quite distant, I mean, from, where the headquarters is and so on. So I wonder, I mean, you took the two biggest challenges you could have, and how do you really now, when we move a bit to the marketing field, how do you really convince you're capable of, delivering value and making sure, the data is secure to some players in the US, typically, big organizations?
Yeah, so the world at the moment is really small. It's not the world that we, knew. And definitely the pandemic changed the way we communicate with prospects and with clients. It used to be very much you had to be everywhere in person. But we all, with my co-founders, rotate, spending time in the US. We've all been many times. And I actually went to high school in the US, and my family lived there for over 20 years. So I feel quite close to the place. But in terms of understanding, like, we spend a lot of time with prospects in their locations, understanding how they work. We spend a lot of time in different events, conferences, talking to people, because we were part of a couple accelerators, also with Google for Startups. They connected us with multiple specialists in the US healthcare market. And really, with the experience we had, we didn't feel out of place. We felt like we can have a conversation with them as partners, and we really know a lot about the problems that they have.
So startups can be credible for healthcare institutions?
Yeah, but they cannot just say everything was going to be okay. They have to deliver. So what we did is we got ourselves audited by a SOC 2 certified international auditor, just to make sure that not only we think our data, that patient data is safe with us, but someone who understands this field confirms that it is so. So for us, this was like the first. It's a formality that as a startup looking to work in healthcare, you just have to have. And in the US, all the practices will ask you, are you HIPAA compliant? Do you have any security certificates? So this was like the basic. But then you think about the client in the healthcare market is a more conservative client. Like in healthcare, you rarely hear the stories of, yeah, I had some money, I put in an MVP in 3 months and everybody loved it, even though it didn't work. Like those stories in healthcare just don't happen.
Okay.
Because the market is conservative, because they're dealing with people's health. So they're not happy for you to experiment on
We
them.
also hear about all those lawsuits, in the US, so probably that's also the case.
Yeah, but also just people are really aware that, they cannot expose a patient to a product that's being worked on. They really demand your product to be reliable, safe, have the certificates. You have to have your ROI calculated, and you have to have proof that it works. So as a startup, you cannot then go too broad, because if you go too broad, you cannot build a whole product, a safe product, and one that works from the start, from day one. So for us, it was key to pick the beachhead, the kind of starting point for us in terms of what our product is and in terms of positioning. I know you are a marketing guy, so you will love the topic of positioning. So when we thought about where can we build a product that's going to be really complete, really be features rich, but also be integrated with the systems that are used by practices, because this is really the key. When you're in healthcare, you're really busy. You really, really don't want to have another login. You really don't want to you really want all the systems that you buy to be able to connect with your main heartbeat of your practice, which is your electronic healthcare record, which we call EHR in healthcare.
Okay. I can see that product focus that you have, and I know that you have a, let's say, a mature product that is validated in many places. But I imagine there is still resistance, and I want to focus on that. Let's say, what type of resistance do you typically meet when speaking with your clients?
Okay, so the typical, as you know, early market majority customer, like a pragmatic customer, will ask you one question. And the question is, who like me, which practice just like me is using the product successfully? So if you're spreading yourself too wide, you will not build that critical mass of reference clients. So we decided to focus on just 3 EHRs to start with: Athena Health, Elation Health, and ModMed, because those are really modern, open-minded EHRs catering for small mid-market, Athena Health for some bigger customers. And also we decided to focus on particular specialties, because then if you focus on a specialty and on a particular system, you can really build a rich product, a safe product, one that works really well, and build your presence in that niche, become a strong player in that particular niche, and then address other niches. Otherwise, you're spreading yourselves too thin. So when you ask about the resistance, so when people ask, okay, so who else like me uses this product? You want to find some similarities, because yes, practices are special, but there are many, many similarities between a dermatology practice and a primary care practice, like in their core processes. So not only do you try to say, okay, we have another dermatology practice that uses this, and here's their case, or you want to say, we have another practice that uses the same system as you're using, and here's what they say about our product. So when you're building that initial base of your clients, you need to look at the similarities, and you don't want to be dishonest, because you're not going to get far. This is the long-term relationship with this market.
So fake it till you make it.
You cannot
doesn't
fake
work.
it till you make it, unfortunately. It just doesn't work.
Mhm.
But by focusing on a narrow pool of specialties and a narrow pool of EHRs, you can build a good product. And then, of course, from the revenue you accumulate, you can expand onto other EHRs,
Yeah.
other processes, and other types of practices that use your product.
That's clear. In terms of, let's say, marketing and sales effort, what does it take to close a client for Talkie?
That's a really good question. So how far do we start? Do we start with obtaining a lead? So we can start there. At the moment, we have, of course, multiple sources of leads. Interestingly, Google remains our main source of inbound leads.
Search.
In the US, search, where we have, let's say, three other main sources, which is social media, marketplaces of the EHRs that we are integrated with, and ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is
The
on
new
par.
positioning, yeah.
Is on par with marketplaces and social media, which is really interesting for us. So this is the source of leads, and of course events, because this is where you meet your clients and you can build relationships.
I want to circle back to search / ChatGPT. What the clients are looking for? Are they looking specifically for your technology, or they are descripting the challenge that they have? How do you relate?
Yeah, this is super cool topic for us. So they come. It depends where they are in their journey, like in their buyer's journey. If they have some active pain, but they don't really know your solution, they'll look for alternatives that they know. They'll look for AI, IVR automation, or how much does a call center cost? They'll look for outsourcing of phone agents, and they'll kind of circle around what's familiar. And of course, from what's familiar, we need to bring them to, you don't have to hire people somewhere far away where it will make you really nervous. You can actually hire an AI agent and have them in your team instead. So those are the people who are not really aware. And then you have the people who've done some research. Perhaps they've been to some conferences and they're looking for a specific. We had one client, because we do ask about this, and we had one prospect who said, I just asked ChatGPT for the best, most reliable solution for AI agents for medical practices, front desk that are HIPAA compliant and patients want to talk to them. So the ChatGPT the nature of ChatGPT means the prompts, of course, are longer. So they are in ChatGPT, they usually search when they are kind of in the middle of the funnel. And then we have some prospects who come to us when they are already at the comparison level, right? They have seen some other solutions, or perhaps they are comparing Talkie to an alternative, which is not necessarily always another AI agent provider, but one of these that I mentioned in the beginning. And then, so of course you have to deal with those groups of prospects differently. We usually have a discovery call, as you know, not really surprising, because you really need to understand whether your solution will work for this client. You don't want to waste anyone's time.
And how much space is there for marketing in a startup? I mean, I know you're not a startup anymore. You're like kind of maturing. But is there space for marketing, or is it more like hustling and sales and following up with leads?
All of it, really. So we try not to be really annoying to our prospects, but on the other hand, people get bombarded by so much content and so many brand names. And also what we've realized is that your prospects will mature. So we're talking to a prospect that actually contacted us 2 years ago. And then they said, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think your solution is mature enough. And we do some outreach for our losts in our CRM. And this prospect is talking to us now because they said, actually, we think we're ready. Like, it's not like AI is for innovators and early adopters anymore. It's becoming a technology that's accepted by the early majority customers, which is great. So we do both pinpointed outreach to our CRM. We do outreach to particular groups of specialties that we cater for, and finally outreach through the EHRs that we are integrated with, and of course any organic SEO and some paid advertising as well.
I see. Well, so I think 70% of the LinkedIn wall these days is AI discussions on AI, and it probably helped a bit. Yeah, I mean, kind of because you started so much earlier than the mass market.
Yeah, this is pretty cool to watch, because we started in 2018, still part of a software house initially, and until 2022 the evolution was kind of slow and gradual. We didn't see the models changed. You got some more tools, but essentially it was more of the same. The voices got better, everything got a bit quicker, and then suddenly everything accelerated. And I feel like we are in this, I cannot remember if it was Star Wars or Star Trek, where, they put the hyperdrive and you could just see the stars wishing around you. And this is what's happening now. But interestingly, when everybody was already so excited about generative AI and LLMs, we couldn't use them in production because they were too slow for a long time, because everything that happens in a phone conversation, it has to happen real time. So your processing needs to happen real time. The voice needs to be generated real time. And for a long time, these models were great, but too slow.
Yeah. The bar is high if you compare with a human being.
Exactly. But recently we, well, not that recent anymore. I guess it's about last 6 months. We've gone through an AI transformation in our organization because we started replacing parts of the conversation with prompts, with LLMs. But of course, in our conversations with patients, there is no room for hallucination. So it's not like, you're tinkering with AI to see where you can go on holidays. No, it is just not acceptable in our product. So we are super careful how much space we create for AI's autonomy in our conversations, we usually outsource very controlled parts of the conversation to particular models, and we've tested all of them. And are on the quest to see which other parts we can outsource to AI, because the quality of conversation is just light years ahead when you incorporate LLMs. Because the conversations that we have around appointment booking, scheduling, cancellations or rescheduling, prescriptions, obtaining data from patients, they're not linear. People don't want to follow linear conversations, linear
It's not like
scenarios.
IVR, yeah?
It's not. So you have to be ready for all sorts of different shifts and a quite abstract parts of negotiation. And we can see the huge improvement on the quality of those conversations that the changes that we've made have had.
Okay. Now circling back to the topic of marketing, I know that you recently hired a head of marketing.
Yes.
I wonder, how long did it take to like form this type of position at Talkie, and what is, let's say, the value? Was it the responsibility of this person? I mean, were you more looking for kind of strategic ability to strategically, evaluate the market and plan activities, or really kind of more hands-on doing?
Guess what? All of the above. So when we were looking for head of marketing, we build a persona. So we actually with all our let's just say leadership team, we formed an idea of this persona. How do they behave? Like what kind of skills do they have? What do we expect this person to do? And this really helped us understand. And then we
How
had,
long was the list?
the list was really long, but then we forced ourselves to prioritize. So we said, okay, we can live without this, but we cannot live without that. And for example, our culture is very much like, I don't want to be the boss who tells people what to do and my word is like sacred. I want the people in my team to really argue with me, because I can be kind of forthright and I don't want to, force my decisions in an authoritative, in a kind of, dictatorial way. So we knew that we can live with someone who hasn't had experience with AI, but we cannot live with someone who doesn't participate in discussions and doesn't get, their cheeks kind of red from their engagement. So we had a really good idea who this person is. And then we prepared a spreadsheet that said, this is what we're looking for and this is what we're not looking for. So when we met with candidates, we were able to be really objective, in how we scored them. We were really clear what signs do we not want to see and what signs we do want to see. So we talked to multiple candidates. And when we ran into Kuba, who we ended up offering the position to, he ticked so many of our marks, and he kind of, we had a real chemistry with him right away. And what I liked about Kuba is that he was able to admit that, I don't know how to answer this question, but let me think. And he just thinks on the spot. He's really super creative. How a startup can be active in marketing without enormous budgets. So I'm probably here only because...
Can you share those details?
Only...
What were the boxes that you wanted to take? I mean, I'm not talking about the psychological kind of profile, but rather like skills and responsibility. It's...
Well,
because it's not a humongous marketing department, yeah.
No. In fact,
people,
yeah. We have our Kuba head of sales, and then we have one person for each market, and then we work with some freelancers.
So, what are the skills seem useful for you on a daily?
This is a good question. So, basically there was this guy called Joel Spolsky. I don't know if you remember him, but he did he kind of came up with this phrase: smart and gets things done. And this is basically what who Kuba is. He's smart, he's resourceful, he's willing to experiment, he's willing to look back at what he did and assess whether this was a good idea or not. He's able to change his mind. He's able to say, I know this, but I don't know this, but I will learn it. And he gets things done, So I think within the first, his heart is in content marketing and he loves podcasts. And he thought that this is actually a really good source of creating unique content. Because, for a startup, it's hard to create a unique content. We don't have the resources to hire a big agency to write us a report. So we have to be creative about our unique content. So Kuba doesn't wait to get stuff done. He gets feedback from his ideas from the real world, and of course, he doesn't implement ideas that are completely untested, but he has managed to do so much in the 6 months that he's been with us, and he has brought fresh new thinking into how we work, but also he brought a lot of experience from the US market because this was his main focus. He worked for Zen Pilot, who specialized in ClickUp implementations and sales. And he brought tremendous experience from the US market, but also just lots of fresh energy and fresh ideas. And yeah, he fit right in. So we're super happy to have him.
Great. I wonder, what are those tactics? Because you have a limited resources, budget-wise, people-wise. So you need to really be selective about what you do. What are the things that you typically do in marketing? You mentioned content, you mentioned some podcasts, but is it most of the marketing work? Or?
Well, the key is to understand what is your chance of encountering your ICP, so your ideal customer, in what you do with your marketing. So for instance, last year we thought, okay, let's just go to many conferences in the US, right? Because we will for sure run into some of our market. But it turned out
people, yeah.
It's just not specific enough. The market's too big. Some of the events are too broad, and we are just lost in the noise. So we try to be super selective about which marketing activities give us the biggest chance for exposure for our ICP. So you really have to be in marketing so precise, but also so ruthless in creating and defining who are you talking to. Because if you're talking to too many people, you're not talking to anyone. You know this because you're saturated in marketing. So we started we actually built ourselves this matrix of what is our commitment to particular market segment that we have. So we went quite deep. For our most important top market segment, we do proactive marketing, proactive outreach. We go to the events. But for other segments, let's say we're more passive. But in terms of tactics, so going back to our positioning, we try to maximize the exposure that our EHRs give us. So be present in their marketplaces, get reviews on those marketplaces, participate in their events, use some of their marketing offering to contact clients and so on.
So leveraging intensively this kind of partner network, technology partner.
Exactly. And then this is one of those ingredients for startups where you find an ally and you enter a market with this ally. And this is kind of how you can think about this. But also, we try not to go too broad with our messages. So we have really closely defined targeting groups. We try to be present at specialty focused media, like for dermatology or primary care, but also produce our content with those specialties in mind and with the kind of buyer journey through the funnel in mind. We try not to go too broad because then your message gets lost.
You have not mentioned LinkedIn. You mentioned search, ChatGPT, events, partners. LinkedIn is not so relevant.
No, LinkedIn is definitely relevant, and but in terms of relevance, now what we know is like personal profiles are more effective in getting traffic than your company profile. Yet you have to have some activity on the company profile so it doesn't look dead. We connect with people through LinkedIn, but I wouldn't say it's our, I don't know, either area of expertise or a dominant channel, because medical practices are really busy. And sometimes I feel that, take it the wrong way, but sometimes marketers feel that everybody else lives on LinkedIn, but they don't.
I very much feel that.
They count their
especially in healthcare. I mean, they kind of run around the clinic and so on, not really sit at the computer all the time.
Yeah, there's also, of course, a segment of consultants in healthcare who, for example, helped in digital transformations, who help in perhaps systems integration and so on.
So these are, let's say, it's your channel as well, consultant.
Let's just say it's a channel that we are exploring. Okay. We've had some early signs that this channel could be a good distribution channel for us, but it feels too early to say that it will be for sure.
I see. Well, when you spoke about marketing, how you plan it, it feels like you very much go strategic about it. I mean, you mentioned the Excels, ticking the boxes, so it looks like you don't do things that are really justified, like that you believe that are worth doing. So I understand that you need to somehow validate anything that you do with some kind of metrics, and startups are known for, I don't know, customer acquisition cost, lifetime value, churn, and so on. What are the metrics that are important for Talkie and you?
Well, all of these as well, but in terms of tactics and marketing, we try to track everything that we do. So, for example, we track with user.com the exact user journey before they send us a web form. And we can see what impact our specialty pages, for example, have had. So as I said, we position ourselves and we build our product around specialties. And in order to communicate this, we created some specialty focused pages. So we have a dermatology page where we talk about our dermatology Danny, who is an expert in working for dermatology clinics as a front desk agent. And we can see that last, let's say, 50 web forms that we received over the last couple of weeks, 10 of them had dermatology Danny in their journey. So we try to see what impact our changes have on getting leads. As a startup with the startup budget, you cannot go for, let's just do a branding campaign. Like maybe Coca-Cola can afford this, but not us. So we have to be super precise, and everything we do is lead generating. Like we cannot do anything else. So we, apart from the financial metrics that you mentioned, which are like hygienic and very important factors, we just try to track and process as much information as we have through the tools that allow us to do this on scale. So the lead, the kind of path tracking, but also we use AI products to analyze our sales calls.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, we try to capture as much data from sales calls and then process this data in order to understand the common patterns, the objections, how we respond to them, what do clients or prospects ask about, and actually optimize the conversations based on large amounts of data that we process with AI. Of course, knowing that AI can hallucinate, but it's been really helpful to have tangible, concrete data that you can work on and make decisions. Not just, based on your marketing theory, but data that you can see that happens in your own business.
I believe you can learn a lot from, let's say, the lost deals. The thing is that when you're losing a project, you very rarely get to explicitly hear what is it about, what's the reason why they are dropping you. I mean,
Yeah.
unless this would be price, something like this, they will always have like an alternative, and they don't. And I know that US is specific for that. I spoke with a colleague that had a US expansion for a few years, and he was lost the first year because all he heard was great job, great product, keep on doing, and there was no conversion. Yeah. So how do you really learn from rejections?
Well, this is interesting. We just completed an analysis of all the lost deals from the beginning of the year, and it's really a combination of factors. Usually, sometimes someone thought they had a problem in calls not being picked up, but it turned out they just had their volumes were too low, and it just doesn't make financial sense to hire AI because the volumes are too small. Sometimes, and this is sometimes someone will go with competition because they are, somehow they got better chemistry. They like the product more, but the interesting statistic is that probably 60% of deals don't happen because of no decision or status quo, right? So this is really the statistic that we are looking at, where we try to find out whether someone actually bought something or not. We monitor whether they bought it because we can, call their helpline and so on. Mostly, it's no decision because status quo is the safest place to be. So it's the helping your buyer buy from you rather than focusing on selling, because these people have never bought a product like this before, right? So you have to have this hat on where you think, actually, these people don't know how to buy this product. Their reputation is on the line. They are risking a lot, and you have to help them understand how to buy, how to compare, and you have to create safe environment to do it. So we try to find out as much as we can from losts. Sometimes prospect will tell you, sometimes they won't, but it's worth to ask.
Yeah,
and I think many people don't ask
for
at
sure.
all.
In that case, I wish you to convert those 60% that are still on hold. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure, Kuba. Thank you.
Thank you, Ada.